Okay, we're going to look at two-on-one grip, two-on-one sleeve grip for Tai Otoshi. We're going to look at two-on-one grip, two-on-one sleeve grip for Tai Otoshi. And I'm going to have Derek come in here and show on Jake here the techniques.
Instead of our classic Tewaza technique here, where one hand is on the lapel in a kumikata grip, okay, we're going to be playing with just two on this one side. And it can be pretty deceptive because the other guy doesn't necessarily think when you're coming over here like this that he's actually going to hit you with the Tai Otoshi. It can also work very, very well because really this is a very important part of the throw, is getting him up and out. And you can actually help leverage the guy out by really focusing on this side as opposed to this one. The consequence of that, though, is that you have to have more follow-through because you've lost a little bit from your power hand being on this side. So, as with everything, there's a plus and minus here. As you're bringing the guy out, you block his bicep with your hand. And you might hit right about there, you might hit right about there, but it's less of a grip and more of a block, okay? And then as you're coming through, you still throw. So for the first one, the block, it's probably the fastest one because you don't have to really worry about grabbing anything or changing a grip. You have your traditional grip, and then as you're moving in, you block, okay? And again, the gripping hand, your power hand, is always going to be vertical as much as you can make it so that you can pop the guy back out again. Similar to how if you had a normal kumikata grip, you'd be right through here and then guide your hands down. You're just able to pop him out a little bit more with your hand and your forearm. So try not to let your elbow flare up. It takes a little bit more push than you're used to because, again, we're not pulling anymore. We're basically blocking and pushing him out. So bear that in mind as you're coming through. You really got to get that hand out there and your hands way out here.
Yeah, oh, it's way deep in there, yeah.
So again, out, block, okay? Vertical on your forearm, continue to press out, and finish with your hands. And that's probably the most common one that you would see of this style. Works really well for nice, quick attacks. And don't get stuck in one of these situations where you're like, oh, I'm gonna throw him. You know, this is definitely an in-transition kind of throw. We're already here. I know what I'm going to do. Boom, pop and get that hand on there.
With catching the thumb, just like here in the crotch of your hand, like that, right on his bicep. See that? Everybody see that when I catch so when I set him up, I'm catching here. So these are very tactical forms of Tai Otoshi because if for some reason he's pulled away the grip, I can still hit the Tai Otoshi.
We'll switch next to the C grip. Okay? Basically the same idea. This gives you just a little bit more control. Again, I'm not gonna flare there and grab and walk around with this grip. This is more along the lines of maybe, and I hear this a lot when we're teaching this, your hand slips off or something and you don't feel like you've got enough control. Fine, grab him in the bicep. And then you've got all the control you need to get through there. Foot goes back, other foot comes out wide. Forearm is vertical, okay? Again, I'm not bending my wrist like that, and I'm catching and I'm pushing him out. You can see how I'm kind of popping my elbow in pretty close to his chest to give me some more purchase. And then it's out and down. There you go.
where we catch a low sleeve grip, and let's say I just hold his hand down, I'm fighting his hand. He's thinking, I'm going to try to make a grip break here. Well, what I'm doing is I'm setting up for a Tai Otoshi. So I'm grab here and grab here. See how this grip here? Right? And when I set in for my Tai Otoshi, I'm going to quickly pull, look at the back of my hand, and use my right arm to block in here on the inside of his elbow. Okay? So it's going to look like this. So we come around here, so you get a better view here. So, see like that? Use your Tai Otoshi. And if you get long arms, it's very helpful to do this. Or you're fighting a long-armed opponent, it's a lot easier to do. You've got a short, stocky opponent. But you got what you got, so here you go. So if you like this, as this pulls, this sets. And there is your Tai Otoshi. So you see that? And like that. So it's a really low 2-on-1 sleeve grip.
I'm coming through and I'm using that part of my forearm to really push him forward, and you'll notice that your forearm, the blade of your forearm, ends up in the crook of his elbow. So if you're doing this and you don't feel your forearm or your wrist slide into the crook of his elbow, your hands aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and then this is going to happen. Okay? So as you're coming through on this one, we're going to have one that's on the low sleeve and one that's mid to upper part of his forearm. I don't want to necessarily worry too much about this unless you've got really, really long forearms. I don't, so I usually go about midpoint, okay? And that's specifically so that when I push that forearm forward, it lands in the crook of his elbow. And that's it. So other guys have longer forearms, they can jam that sucker in there and they don't have to worry about it too much. I tend to have to go up here, okay? So as I'm coming through, I take that back step and then set. And you'll see that forearm right there in the crook of his elbow. Kick across, and then it's just forward as much as you can get and down. You're pushing forward like this, you're not going to get him way the heck out there, okay? You'll get him about halfway through and cut him back down again. So it's a little bit like swinging a sledgehammer on a tire or chopping wood.
Here, he's broken the grip. I catch the grip here. See, palm up, palm down. See this? And when I do this, then I'm going to structure my hand where my fist is up, my elbow is down, where it comes like this. Can you see this? How I'm setting here? So I want to set my hand here on the inside of his biceps as I pull. So I'm here like this, and when I come in, I structure it like this. And there's my Tai Otoshi.
So as we're coming through here, instead of coming here, I'm just going to grab up there, a little bit higher than the bicep, okay? And then as you, again, fit in, you've got that forearm that's vertical, and this part is going right into his armpit. So whereas before we were trying to aim to get that in the crook of the elbow, trying to aim that in the crook of his armpit, okay? So So now we're going to use the armpit grip. And again, the front and the back of the armpit are great places to grab a hold of if the guy has a really tight jacket. And it's also something that most people don't defend very well. So even if he's got a super tight, defensive posture, I can grab there, and then I can grab him right there. And I've still got a piece of it. It might not be a great piece, but at least it's a piece. So the idea here is still set that forearm in there. If you're there, boom, okay? Thumbs down, set your forearm into the armpit. Boom, back, cross. we're going to talk about is the upper arm grip. Similarly to how we were doing the wrist grip, where it's an over-under with your thumb opposing, right? One goes this way, one goes that way. This is a normal grip. This one's more of a backwards grip than what we would normally do. And I'm going to go up there. You can, I think Steve taught me this way first. A lot of times I'll end up grabbing right there, because there's a nice pocket you can grab right there that'll work as well. So we'll go with this one first. So as we're coming through here, instead of coming here, I'm just going to grab up there, a little bit higher than the bicep, okay? And then as you, again, fit in, you've got that forearm that's vertical, and this part is going right into his armpit. So whereas before we were trying to aim to get that in the crook of the elbow, trying to aim that into the crook of his armpit, okay? So, that last time I didn't cut down as much. You'll find that that happens. You push so far forward that you might overbalance. So again, remember, cut back down towards your feet with your hands. You won't overbalance yourself. Now this versus this is not going to make that big of a difference. It's just where you're comfortable grabbing a hold of that guy. So again, you can almost do the same thing if you're over here as well. A lot of times they won't give that to you, but if you do, same idea. Thumb down on his near side lapel, jam that into his armpit. You got your Tai Otoshi. So basically all the way up and down his sleeve.